Welcome to Forum 360, where I'm your host, Leah Love, and we have a global outlook from a local view. Thank you for joining us today for this super exciting topic that we have. We are going to be talking about weddings on the go with Miss Stephanie. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Leah.
So weddings on the go is actually a title for a drive-through wedding that you do with your business. Mm-hmm. So tell me, what inspired the concept of a drive-through wedding, and how does that differ from a traditional wedding?
Mm-hmm. So drive-through weddings, I would say, it is a concept that I duplicated during my time living and residing and officiating as an officiant in Las Vegas, Nevada. As we know that many couples, Las Vegas is the capital of the world, wedding capital of the world, considered one of the capitals of the world. So couples, I love the affordability, the convenience of small micro weddings. And with the small micro weddings, again, it's just something simple where couples can just get legalized. They don't even have to have a full blown out wedding. It's like elopement. So the drive-through weddings actually just stemmed out of the small micro weddings. It just more condensed and more centered focus on just legalization rather than a big full wedding. So I am very passionate about legalization of, commitments and promises, unity, family, and love. So that actually was my draw to even weddings. So when I saw the concept being with the drive-through weddings, I thought that was so convenient because there are so many couples have so many reasons why they're getting married, but they don't have, they want to get married, but they don't have the money right now, the funding. So with the drive-through wedding, it makes it a fun, intimate, of course, legal, a fun way just for couples to quickly tie the knot. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was really drawn for a lot of those reasons in one.
So you mentioned affordability. What would be like the average cost comparison for a traditional to a drive-through wedding?
Okay. The average cost for a drive-through is it's affordable. I should say it's $50. Okay. It's only $50. And the reason, and I'll tell you the reason why I chose $50 with that, because I wanted it to be accommodating to couples who just wanted to go to the courthouse. So this is an alternative way to get married with like I said, a romantic experience and just going to the courthouse and just saying I do based off of being just a registered, Mm-hmm. So I wanted to turn to an intimate experience. So I wanted to be compatible to their rates of registration. So definitely continue to keep everything affordable. It's really like a notary, mm-hmm. honestly. However, with the full-blown wedding, it's more moving parts, it's more things that go on. So of course that would be costly a little bit more, but we removed all the rice and the suits and all that. So now it just condensed down to what everyone's going to do in every ceremony and say, I do. So why would you overcharge for somebody just to take an oath?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what do you see as the latest trends in the wedding industry?
The latest trends is being mindful of how they spend their money, saying I do. Because here's the thing, when COVID happened, that started to open people's minds of like really thinking like what's important, because people were transitioning quicker. There was a lot of people who were cohabitating. Common law marriage does not stand in Ohio. So when they seen their loved ones quickly transitioning, they're just only having this common law and things were not set in place. The paperwork was not set in place because we know that love does not, hold true and, stand firm in court. Yeah. So when things need to there's some disillusions or there's a transition, someone passes away or whatnot, you can't go with the he said, she said. So people are making quick decisions and starting to say, let's get married. Let's make this happen really quick. So now I'm start seeing people are being okay when they saying this is accepted. It's okay. I don't have to go to the courthouse. I can do it this way. Still feel as though it's a wedding and it's center focus on us. So they're becoming more wiser now that they tapped into it because it was a force. Lastly, because there was a social distance guideline set in place. So that really condensed everyone into having to think micro, small, because it was 10 people at that particular time, which I did have a venue at that time that really put me on the map because I had brought a small micro venue during the time of the COVID. All the larger venues had shut down. The courthouses had shut down. Mm-hmm. They couldn't find an officiant. They couldn't find, a location. And then that actually put eyes on my venue, which I just created and brought from Las Vegas, which was at that time called A Princess for a Day. And so people's minds started to change and evolve, and they said, really, what? I had a full wedding just on a smaller scale. This makes sense. My money makes sense. Now I can buy that house. Now I can buy that car. Now I can invest differently. So I'm getting a lot more of that. And now when they're seeing the drive-through, center focus on that, and I spent like $50, and it was a beautiful, intimate moment between just who was important, me and my significant other, and we didn't have to pay thousands of dollars for people to come and watch us say, I do. And I can still just fly off and take this luxurious honeymoon and do all kinds of phenomenal things. It became like a light bulb, for a lot of people. So again, I'm seeing a trend coming from rethinking how they spend their money when they just want to say, I do.
I find it very interesting as of late in different industries that I've talked to, and how COVID affected a lot of those and how it birthed out new opportunities, I guess. So that's very interesting that was one of the opportunities that was able to grow. And I can easily see that, especially like you said, with the social distancing and not being able to have people.
Yes.
So tell me, what is the actual process of a drive-through wedding? Like, what does that look like?
Okay, a drive-through wedding is very similar to making, like you just make a hair appointment or anything else, like a notary or whatnot, as I mentioned. You just call, set up a time and a date, which is great because it doesn't take long to have a ceremony. So I operate 7 days a week, and it's just a matter of what time of the day, is available. So there's always a time slot for a ceremony. So we'll schedule a time, confirm and lock it in. When I have a confirmed ceremony, because that goes into something else we would talk about with security and privacy as well. Then we would give them the designated location. We would meet there, administer the oath. Again, at that time, I'm telling you the recipe, but not the ingredients. So you create a beautiful, intimate moment for them, and assign the documents and send them off into happily ever after, as I say.
How long is the average drive-through ceremony?
There's a 15-minute block time.
Okay.
Yeah, but as a courtesy, as we know, so when everyone's on time, there's nothing forgot, we do block off 30 minutes. And then also create that gap so that there is no overlapping of arrivals between each ceremony, so that I know if everything goes on schedule and as planned and on time, that person is fully out of the area, and a new ceremony can come and can be customized and center focus on that couple at that time.
On average, how many could you do in like one day?
There's 24 hours. It's only two. So you can do the math.
So you would do it
you
all
can do
day,
the math.
or like
I
you
have
like
nothing
specific
to do.
hours that you try to...
I do. Well, because I will say this, because it is the drive-through. Now that doesn't. My services can go a different route, but because it's a drive-through. And it's outdoors, I have to base it off of sunset, sunrise. So a sunrise, sunset. So within those hours, I can see where the sun is going to set, and then I kind of I definitely would make sure that my couples will come before it is totally, before it's totally late. So they can come as early as, dawn when the sun rises, so that we're in a safe environment. And I know that's one of the keys.
That was my next question. What kind of
absolutely.
safety measures do you take?
Luckily for me, I will say the location that we are in, there is a officer that's always present, and there's our officers that travel in the neighborhood, so I feel safe with that. That's for both of our safeties. For my safety, I always gather much information as I can before my couple arrive to the location. And the location has to be, the time and date has to be secured with a deposit that confirms a guaranteed arrival. So I already have that information set in place, and they are reassured as well that I will arrive. So now we're secured in that form. Now when we arrive on scene, like I said, I keep everything secured. Well, it's secured by the officers that travel around, so that's safety for us. And then we have the blocking that's there so that we can make sure that if there is someone else who may be in love with that couple, you never know, might cross paths, like, oh, that's where they're going to be. So I haven't released any information. I know specifically who I'm releasing the information to before, the location to before, upon arrival. Yeah. And they can have a small, intimate, beautiful, it might just not be a formal loved one that might be still attracted. It can still be family members who are not approved. And we can talk about that, which is most important of these whys. These couples it's so many whys that they're choosing the drive-through wedding versus, it's not really versus the courthouse, because it's not a competitive market. Really, the courthouse is the option of courthouse. Do they want to go to the courthouse, or do they want to be, just an intimate moment? So they choose the drive-through because, again, they may have a large family who are not agreeing to that decision. They're like elopement, so they get the chance to make the decision their own. So one of the reasons they may have a large family, they don't want to deal with the emotional stress of, having a lot of people making decisions or having feelings all involved into their union. So they may choose to do something more intimate. Then we have couples who have tried love once or twice, 3 times a lady.
No, that song's gonna be in my head.
But they may have tried love at different times, and they've already experienced the big blowout ceremony, so they know now what's most important, and they want to be center focused on them and concentrate on them. So you'll get some who say, no, we opt out of that. We've done that before. We know what it's about. Let's take care of this business here. We have some who are pre-deployed, going in the military, and they're choosing to make sure their significant other which would be their fiance or now husband or wife, they're secure, beneficial with their beneficials. You know what I mean? Insurance.
Yes.
So say that.
Their beneficiary.
Benefits. Yeah, benefits. They have benefits, and their insurance is set in place.
Yes.
So when they return from deployment, then they'll come back and they'll have a big blowout wedding, but they want to make sure that they're okay while they're gone. So we have a lot of those couples who do have small to little to no family at all, and they choose, there's no reason to make a big deal. But we still want to have a moment because we don't have the people set in place that'll be there. So.
Do you find that they do bring other people there, or is it typically just them?
Good question. With every service that I offer, I would just say that offers different packages. So with that, to keep it so we can be mindful that they may have children or parents, so we do include 2 guests they can bring.
Okay.
But they're not required. They can still keep it intimate because within the state of Ohio, witnesses are not required. I would be considered that state licensed witness for them.
Okay. So they can't bring auntie, grandma, cousin Ray.
No, you know what? Now to think about it, now
like 10?
it's no longer the drive-through experience. Now we're going into a wedding. We're changing things, but there is upgrades to that. So they do have an opportunity. That's very important to know that if they start off with one package, regardless whatever service I offer, whatever service that's created, that package that's created, they can upgrade, so they can implement rings and vows if they choose to. They can implement more people, more guests, but that's add-on, because now we're changing it to different moving parts and different things that goes on into that part of the ceremony.
Okay. And if you are just tuning in, my name is Leah Love, and we are talking about weddings on the go with Miss Stephanie today. Okay, so getting back to it, talking about the packages, what are some of the different types of packages?
Well, the most common one, which we're talking about, which is most popular, and it has dominated all of my other ceremony packages, is the drive-through ceremony.
Okay.
That's the base. That's the start of any wedding, is going to the courthouse, getting the license, and they deciding what day they want to legalize the ceremony. It's so easy. Do it now. We don't have to have a big blowout wedding later. Now we're moving forward. Say they want a little bit more, like you were mentioning. They want to start adding this and adding this. Now we're getting into the elopement or the micro wedding. So now here we can do still a small elopement wedding here at our location, the park area. We can do elopement there. They can have a big ceremony at that time there. Depending on if they got a permit, we can add on other pieces to that. Then,
so what's the difference with elopement as a different terminology, or is it the same thing?
You know what? It's actually the same. The drive-through would be an elopement. Okay. But I don't, because elopement can have a different more numbers, different amount more people to really consider the elopement. The drive-through is so condensed down. It's just more of an intimate legal ceremony with a romantic twist. That's all I call it there. Okay. But now when they decide to add in rings and vows, which again, I don't know if I mentioned that, how the ceremony is strictly legal. It does not include rings or vows. It does not tamper with their spiritual, religious, or cultural beliefs. So again, it removes all of that. So if they choose to have a larger wedding at a later time, whether locally or a destination wedding, and they want to share it amongst family and friends, we didn't remove them. We didn't tamper with that wow experience. And it can be organic and authentic when they share those vows with family and friends that have already seen it and pretending, which I call it the production, So yeah, so that's what it is. We keep them center focused. It's just a legal ceremony, very similar to like a notary, but it just has a romantic twist. So it has no form of fashion to be considered the technical elopement.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
when you start adding no vows and rings, now with elopement and more people, it's a little elopement. Now when it becomes a little massive, everything
Okay.
gets into sort of
Okay.
production. That's the wedding. That's
Okay.
the, yeah.
Okay. So
And
I
then-
assume that the rings would have been in it, but in the traditional sense of a drive-through, they're not involved.
No,
in
it's
that.
because
Okay.
it's just legal. It's
Okay,
just a
just
legal binding,
making it
consensual
legal.
agreement.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
Yes. To be
perfect.
to get them recognized in the court, they can get that paperwork done. And I always water it down with couples, which I do. I say, if they get so specific about the whys, why this is just so that you have something recognizable by the courthouse. This is the official day, but this is not the actual wedding. The wedding part of it is the symbolic, the spiritual, religious part of it that you incorporate. This has none of that in there. This is what the court has needs in front of them. Exhibit A, Exhibit B, you know what I'm saying? So there's no next of kins coming in saying everything.
Yeah,
You can take
yeah.
care of that if
Yeah.
there's something that's going to be happening detrimental in that time.
So how do you feel about premarital counseling or counseling in general, and how would that fit into this aspect?
My personal opinion, I think counseling is inevitable. I just believe counseling for everything. Mentor or something. With our ceremonies, again, is legal, so I don't tamper with the counseling, but I am advisable. I do have recommendations and resources for counseling if a couple comes in with a spiritual aspect. Now, they wouldn't do that with the drive-through.
Okay.
They would actually, if we were moved forward into a ceremony, but if they did ask, we're going to prepare for a ceremony before we make well, they already made a legal decision, huh? So, so they really do need the counseling before that. We can't. Hey, if they decide to call me and ask about counseling before they try to do the drive-through, hopefully they've already done that. But we do have resources on my website. I have a relative, I would say that within my family, who's been our spiritual guidance leader. He's a mentor, a counselor for many people. He's really active in Akron, actually. And he's always available there for me if I need to direct anybody into that realm and need some navigation in their relationship. But I think, personally, my opinion, counseling is needed before, middle, in between, and ending. If something is dissolved, I think counseling is so, or finding a mentor, a wedding mentor, like I'm talking about couples who have been in the union for many years. And they perhaps, again, all relationships are different and we operate different, but they had tools that, that possibly can help. And I do believe in either having a mentor or finding a counselor or a navigator, somebody to help navigate through, those times that will come.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
they will come.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give for a newly engaged couple who is incorporating a drive-through wedding into their actual wedding plan? Like, what would your recommendation be for things that you should make sure you think about while you're doing this planning?
So let me get this understand. Are they doing the drive-through then going to have a wedding behind it? Oh, and it has happened. It has happened actually, and they have used me as well. Had me. Because that goes into with the packages that we were talking about that I might have skipped over, where I have a package where I can just be utilized as just an officiant. So they can bring me to, so say my venue is small, or they done a drive-through, or they don't want a drive-through. Not everybody's, agreeing with the drive-through. They may want to have a bigger wedding. So I have a package where I can just be hired in or brought in as their officiant at their venue, at their location, their choice. So I'm just an officiant that has various platforms that can give them, I can accommodate every ceremony aspect. So as far as, repeat that question because I want to make sure
Any
I got
advice that they should consider when planning?
Right. So the advice that, I don't really give so much advice. It's just a suggestion. They can go ahead and legalize it now and save and plan for a larger wedding at a later time. Like I said, whether they do so locally or go off into a destination wedding.
What about anything hiccup-wise that may come up, or like, I guess in the general sense of planning for wedding?
Okay.
Is there anything that you would tell them to make sure that you
In a larger ceremony? Because now with the drive-through, it's great.
Yeah.
You just have to go to the
I'll say
courthouse.
just in general with the full wedding planning process.
You know what? From based off being a wedding officiant, whatever package, I cannot touch a ceremony without marriage license.
Okay.
That's the biggest hiccup that you can ever have. Everything else is symbolic and that can be handled at any other time. But the ceremony cannot move forward without a marriage license.
Have you ever had one that didn't have a marriage license?
Absolutely. Because everybody, there's this new for a lot of people. So here, I'm a wedding officiant. I do this, do that, and the other. So they're thinking, oh, well, this is where I get the marriage license, especially if I have a younger couple that might come this unfamiliar territory. So I had to remind them, let me tell you what's great. Because my location is downtown Akron, right next to the courthouse. Now think, if anyone has been to Las Vegas, they already know all the chapels are like within blocks of their courthouse. Yeah. So what my thinking was duplicating the concept, which I did, but I made it my own. So I didn't take everything to make it Las Vegas. There's a twist because it's not Las Vegas. Okay. But what I did was I placed our locations, they have the micro wedding, which is located in the Boutique Hotel. We have a small micro wedding, very similar to how it would be in Las Vegas. So they can get married there, but we're a block away from the courthouse. So they can run right over there to the courthouse and zip, and I can wait. They're on time for their ceremony. That's just the way our courthouse is actually operate in Summit County. I can speak only for Summit County. Yeah. So the same as for our drive-through, there's been situations they show up. Very rare, because that's one question I always ask. I'm sure I'm more conscious to ask before, have you registered for your marriage license? And usually, it's okay. Especially if I get someone to call, we ready right now. I'm like, wait, whoa, especially, or it's Sunday and the courthouse is closed. Like, hey, did you go to,
So if it's Sunday and they didn't, they have to wait. They have to wait.
Yeah. And there has been some disappointments. Like, what do you mean we had to wait? Yeah, I'm like, that's how you're legalized. That's the court part of it. But I can marry you for boyfriend and girlfriend, I promise, but I don't have any paperwork to legalize you. So yeah, that's the biggest hiccup. Everything else goes into the coordinator, because I don't do anything beyond the officiating, the marriage. So my tool is the marriage license and the couple. I'm not concerned about the people and the food and all that.
So let me ask you this. If you could give a newly married couple some advice.
Ooh, you're asking these advice questions.
I mean, because you have a lot of experience with it, what you see. So what advice would you give them for success with the marriage?
Counseling.
After the wedding too. Okay.
Counseling, because that is not my realm. That's not my line of expertise, is the counseling. And I respectfully have to, I say that. I just recommend getting counseling. Recognize there's going to be some ups and downs. This paper does not change anything that was happening before that will happen afterwards. That does change. It just makes everything one. So you're sharing things now. So that's really, I don't have any advice. Get the paperwork. Just make sure you have paperwork. I'm just so passionate about the legal part of it. That's where my expertise comes from. I don't have expertise in the relationships and how to do that. That's why I advise counselors to come in and they support my unions, or I lead them out to those. But I'm very passionate about the binding agreement. I say I'm a survivor or a victim or whatnot of a common law union. My mother, and she gives me permission, I shared a story with many couples. I have had a couple convert themselves to say, yeah, you know what, I will sign an agreement, because they had agreement, no, we're spiritually married. That exists in the spiritual world. But in the legal government world, that does not work, right? If you want to secure your family, that child that you're about to have not just a last name or just security. So my mother had commonly law married young man who's transitioned now. Long story, he transitioned. They never had the paperwork. So to grow up from being almost a toddler, I'll say that, or a very young child, to grow him into adult out of life, seeing this man take us to all levels, secured everything that a marriage entails on the spiritual realm. But when this person had transitioned, Mom didn't have a name. She didn't have a voice. Okay? So when it's time to decide in the system whose is what, and she's not the next of kin, she don't have a voice. Sometimes, a couple can get, or significant other, or the spouse, or can get removed from the obituary, not even be recognized, because family's going to come in and claim they don't marry you. That opposite family loved you because you love that person, but when that love is ended in any kind of way, they no longer love you. You're not theirs. Yeah. They're coming back, and they might have resentment. They may have it's some type of grievance they do, and they usually try to hold on to something because of whatever, they don't want to lose that person. So no, they're not going to even give you that picture frame,
Yeah.
So all of that was theirs, and rightfully so. So the paperwork would have changed a lot of things right there, a lot of conversations. I have performed ceremonies at the nick of time and had that person sign before they transitioned. Even with my notary services, they have signed a will, even though marriage was set in place, there was some other things, they signed that document that solved all things. They actually signed it. Now that calms down the people who may become a little bit more emotional, they're still dealing with different type of emotions. And that now that significant other, that spouse, she can now, or he, whomever, can just go on to life in peace. But now when they stand in front of that court with that paperwork, it doesn't have to be, well, so-and-so said, because that person's voice is quiet. So I just think in that way. I don't go in the way of thinking, of course, we know divorces do happen. Unfortunately, you just some things just turn out not to be a good fit. It happens, but still that paperwork is so important. Yeah. So a lot of my reasons even becoming officiant is because I became passionate about the contract, the agreement. I'm an advocate for a word of bond. I'm an advocate for contracts. Ask my creditors. When people ask, have you been? No, but I got the longest relations I have with my creditors, and I hold true. So who best to hold you accountable to your love and your relationship.
So real
that
quick,
binding agreement.
Can you tell us where people can find you at?
Absolutely. They can find me first they can call me direct if they choose to do so at 330-333-0249, call or even text 24/7. Or they can visit my website at www.bluemicroevents.com. That's for the small micro venue if they're interested in that. If they're interested in the drive-through ceremonies, that's www.drivethroughweddings.info.
All right, perfect.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I am your host, Leah Love, and this is Forum 360, where we have a global outlook from a local view. Have a great week.
Forum 360 is brought to you by John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, the Akron Community Foundation, Hudson Community Television, the Rubber City Radio Group, Shaw Jewish Community Center of Akron, Blue Green, Electric Impulse Communications, and Forum 360 supporters.